上場破産は肝臓がんに追いやられて刑務所の中で殺されたんだ。アジアに真の自由と人権を民主主義をもたらしたい。ろうそくの灯火を持っていただいて、上場破産が
自らの選択に悔いはない。楽観的に明日を待っている。
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Miyako. For those who don't know me, I am a Japanese living in Japan who is a huge Trump supporter, and today I actually want to talk about Chester from Linkin Park because I grew up with the band and Mike Shinoda is half Japanese, so I feel the attachment and everything, but let's stay focused on politics because political field needs lots of attention. So in this video, let me introduce the protest against the Chinese Communist Party that we held here in Fukuoka, Japan a week ago, like last Friday, and tonight, this Friday. And also I'd like to talk about the reason behind our activities like that, and for that I need to introduce the common recognition that we Asians have in common against the Chinese Communist Party. So the events that we held last Friday and this Friday were both against the Chinese Communist Party on the issue of the death of Nobel laureate Liu Xiaobo in Chinese custody. And as you probably know by now, he was a Chinese political activist in China on human rights, and he was also teaching. But so long story short, the Chinese Communist Party regarded Liu Xiaobo as a threat against the Chinese Communist Society and imprisoned him. So the Japanese expert on China named Dr. Homare Endo, she shares the information that the Chinese government tried a procedure many times on Liu Xiaobo, which was to destroy Xiaobo's brain cells only, while keeping his looks healthy. So the Chinese Communist Party didn't want him dead in fear of possible protests in entire China, right? But they wanted to kill him as an activist or an influencer. That's why there were attempts like that. But fortunately, his family and lawyers on human rights caught it and got to avoid that from happening. However, as you guys probably know, the Chinese government rejected curing his liver cancer, and they also rejected him medically taken care of overseas, which he wished for. And his liver cancer is something that's very, very suspicious as well, because for example, there's this former Communist Party secretary of Chongqing named Xilai, who's also in prison, and surprisingly, Xilai got liver cancer allegedly at the same time as Liu Xiaobo, who is now dead. And example number 2, there was even this former vice chairman of the Chinese Communist Party named Wang Hongwen, and he died also in prison in 1992. And he was only in the 50s, and guess what he died from? Liver cancer! And this guy that was there in prison with him announced in his memoir that Hongwen was injected some unknown medicine and he was suffering from sleeplessness and suffocation in the chest and so on. And example number 3, there is a Chinese human rights lawyer, and according to his wife, in prison he was forced to take the medicine, and because of that there were times when his eyesight got blurry and so on. But yeah, it's so sickening. And they're even invading into our country as well. Like, they came to my prefecture the other day. Can you believe that? It was in the sea, but still, it's my prefecture, and they were coming in. So back to the case of Liu Xiaobo. So his wife has been also in custody, and she can't seem to leave China against her will. And not only that, she is dragged into this trip by a Chinese Communist Party, and what that means is that the party is trying whatever they can to avoid any stimulation or any protest opportunities among the Chinese citizens. But yeah, that's why we held the event tonight as well. That it was not only for Liu Xiaobo but also for his wife. But yeah, even after his death, Xiaobo doesn't seem to get freedom, and his ashes were thrown into the sea, as you guys may have seen. And also his family is apparently threatened by the Chinese Communist Party, and their statements were all controlled at the funeral. And also his supporters were held in custody all at the same time after his death, and also the man that wrote Charter 08 with him were threatened by the Chinese police not to leave where he was. Like, you know, it's one of those things like, oh, stay where you are, don't do anything stupid or something like that. Lots of oppressing, lots of controlling happening right now, and as you probably know, all the news or posts on SNS in China related to his death, of course, are blocked or deleted, exactly the same as what they do with the Tiananmen Square massacre. I'm sorry if you already knew what I talked about, but I just wanted to make sure that we're on the same page. The point that I wanted to share with you is that the Chinese Communist Party is oppressing human rights. And just like any other place in the world, we Japanese are protesting against the Chinese Communist Party. But anyway, enough talking, right? So I'm gonna show you some footage. So as I showed at the very beginning, we held a protest here on last Friday, and we got on 2 different newspapers here called Sankei Shimbun and Yomiuri Shimbun, and it's in my house. I forgot to bring it here. Too bad. And tonight I think there were 30 people that came to the candle event in Fukuoka, but we held the event in multiple places in Japan, like Tokyo, Shizuoka, Osaka, and Fukuoka, and the Tokyo one, I believe, just aired on NHK, and I forgot to see that. Anyway, now let me show you guys some footage from the events we held, okay? So the big banner says, "We protest against the murder of Liu Xiaobo by the Chinese Communist Party, and China must stop the oppression against human rights right now." And tonight we laid out our candles and mourned his death and wished for the release of his wife. And I got to read Liu Xiaobo's final statement called "I have no enemies." For both events, people passing by showed interest in what we were saying, so that was good. But now let me show more of the footage.
肝臓がんに追いやられて刑務所の中で殺されたんだ。殺されたんです。皆さん、殺されたんだよ。こんなことが許されていいはずがない。大変な人権侵害じゃないですか。殺人だ。中国政府による刑務所の中での殺人だ。私たちは自分たちが平和で自分たちの生活だけが安泰であればいいんだというように見過ごしてはいけないと。アジアに本当の自由、本当の人権を私たちのこの日本の国から声を上げることによってアジアに真の自由と人権を、民主主義をもたらしたい。命さらばは守られない基本的な人権がないこの中国の現状に対し、共産党一党独裁体制に対しおかしいじゃないかという声を日本から私たちのこの自由と民主主義の国から上げていきたい、そのように思います。劉暁波さんは完全に非暴力の戦いの中で中国の民主化といつの日か自由と人権がもたらせることを信じて頑張っておられました。
Welcome back. So as you may have noticed, we had a few English signs as well, because one, we can let the world know about our events through our pictures or videos afterwards, and two, Fukuoka City, where we had both events, is actually fairly big. So believe it or not, there are lots of foreign people in the city, and we knew that they were gonna pass us by. So both times, whether they are residents here or tourists, I could see them desperately reading the English signs. Like I saw their lips mumbling, you know, like they're trying to read, and I was like, oh, thank you so much for, you know, caring about what we were insisting. There were some Westerners the last time, but for both times there were Chinese people or Korean people, because that's like the main tourists here in Fukuoka. So speaking of foreigners, often in the West, I think that Japan is thought to be a homogeneous country, right? Maybe you guys think so as well. And I would say that it's correct racial-wise. But as for famous people here, for example, like in sports or on TV or in political field, there are lots of foreigners or mixed people or naturalized people from other countries. And in terms of political field, it's very diverse as well. Whether or not they're right-wings or left-wings or conservatives or non-political, there are people originally from China, Taiwan, South Korea, Tibet, Uyghur, South Mongolia, Hong Kong, or the United States even, for example, you know. We even have mixed politicians, and it's just diverse. And here is the interesting part, so pay attention guys, okay? So often against China, we conservatives have political gatherings or protests with foreign people or naturalized people from Asia, or sometimes even with American people in Japan. Like, it's not leftists, but us conservatives who do that. And the people, especially from Asia, that we team up with are suffering from the Chinese aggression, colonization, and oppression. And a lot are living in Japan or in other countries, and most of them can't go back to their own country because some are not allowed in, you know, and others, if they went in, they would get caught and get imprisoned and get killed, that sort of things. So yeah. And you might wonder, why do the Japanese team up with them while we don't originally share the same cultural or religious values with them? Because there are even Muslim people that we team up with, and according to the comment section in my previous videos, I could tell that some people are not taking it well. Like, apparently some people don't think that it's a good thing, but I would say that it's a Japanese thing, and also it's an Asian thing, because the bottom line of our political thoughts, I believe, is called Greater Asianism, and our enemy is now replaced with another from the original one. Maybe except for South Korea, because in South Korea the North Korean propaganda is always coming in and it's very active and people are getting brainwashed and everything, and they're anti-Japan mostly. But anyway, a lot of us still, a lot of Asians have a common fundamental understanding of history, that with the World War II, Japan freed Asia from Western colonization. But now, Asia is being colonized again, this time by a different power. Who's colonizing us? Communist China. You might be thinking now though, like, colonization by China, like, that's not the right word. But look at this footage from Hong Kong, for example. So Hong Kong was never a part of communist China, but it was returned to communist China, which I find odd. And a lot of people in Hong Kong, their identity is not Chinese, in fact, and they're Hong Kongers. They call themselves Hong Kongers.
We're not Chinese! We are not Chinese! We're not Chinese! We are not Chinese! We're not Chinese! We are not Chinese! Then who are you? We are Hong Kong! 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 Hong Kong independence! 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 Hong Kong independence!
And China always insists their favorite one country, two systems, but it's a lie. And like, people in Hong Kong are getting more and more oppressed, and seriously, like, they can't even become politicians. Rather, China is disqualifying more and more politicians there that they don't like. But as I said, Hong Kongers, they don't want to be colonized by China. Or check out what former Philippine President Aquino said. He called China the modern Nazi, which the majority of us agreed to, because we're all suffering from their expansionist policy, which they call their dream. I saw this random guy complaining to me endlessly on Twitter. You might receive China is modern Nazi comment as an extreme stupid comparison, but honestly, it's weird to me that some Trump supporters get offended by me using the expression, because I'm showing who the real expansionist is, who is not Trump. The left labels Trump as Nazi, but I'm saying he is not. Communist China is. But why do some people get offended by that statement or that comparison? Because they love Hitler, because they respect Hitler. And I'm like, just say so, you know? But I thought that we were talking about expansionist policy versus appeasement policy, you know? And some people dare to take it out of context and attack me. I'm like, I don't know, like we are talking about political dynamics and nothing more than that. And I understand the guilt imprint in Germany, because that concerns me, you know, like Japan lost the war together and we know what happened in Germany and how they moved on and so forth. We Japanese think of that as a problem, you know, and our history might be revised too in a way and so on. But the point I have to make here is that if you have any personal attachment to things, you will fail to make a right judgment. At least that's what I think. At least agree to disagree, you know. I really wish that we could agree that we have our own problems and our own standards in our, like, both of our countries. That's why we need understanding. We don't have to judge each other. We just have to know what's going on in each other's countries. Anyway, so with the common understanding of expansionist policy versus appeasement policy, especially the Japanese conservatives use the past to rearm ourselves. Note, Japan doesn't have military. So the argument that the Japanese conservatives make in Japan is that we can't just show our non-violent attitude and expect others to listen to us or be nice to us, because they have intentions and they have their own reasons to do whatever the heck they want to, you know, and it can conclude some military actions. And another thing we insist is that we need to stop compromising for our enemies, you know, because we know what happened in history and we can see the patterns of things. So instead of appeasement policy, we say that we need to have military power, as peace can be achieved through balance of power. And another key point to understand, like, the Japanese situation is that we are not like the US, which has had many wars or battles after the World War II. What I'm trying to say is that our sense of feelings often revolves around the World War II still. Like, we're living in the past. Like, it's kind of ridiculous, but yeah, even after 7 decades, it's just how we are. So we tend to talk a lot about the World War II. I mean, that's pretty much the only thing, especially in Japan. That's pretty much the so ridiculous to think about. Oh my gosh, it's so we're living in the past. The education and the social system is that bad in Japan, so we still feel close to the World War II. And as for Japan, of course, we are still under so-called post-war regime of the World War II even. So yeah. This American writer that I know was pointing out to me before everything, like before Trump or whatever, that Prime Minister Abe must become Churchill and not Chamberlain. So it was totally the same logic. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't, but communist China is a problem, and I hope that at least we can agree on that. And maybe they're not your first priority, I don't know, but I just want you guys to know that even economically, China is going all over Asia. And I hear that they are doing the same to Africa. And they always do business with Europe because European people don't have the direct threats from China. I don't know, like, enlighten me on that, European people. I don't think it's only in Asia or Africa, but it's also Chinese money is everywhere, including the US. And I think it was Laura Ingraham who was pointing this out. But so while the left in the US keeps talking about Russia, they never talk about China, don't you think? However, the Democrats in the US, I bet, have ties with China. And China has done or has been doing massive cyber attacks on the US companies and even federal government, you know, and they are active in sanctuary cities as well, or they are backing up US politicians. Like, it's a problem that we Japanese are aware of. You know, like, they become the tool to tear Japan-US alliance. and so on, and they're even getting powerful in the Hollywood industry as well, right? Like basically they're just everywhere. These are actually one of the strongest reasons why I or the rest of the conservatives here support President Trump, because his brains are supposed to be Jacksonians and they are not so-called panda huggers. Like they are what we call dragon slayers. And so yeah, and even economically, Trump administration is supposed to be very strongly against China's violations or manipulations. And not only that, they don't mind Japan getting military independent, and rather they want us to be the leader of Asia. This video is getting long, and so I just wanted you guys to know that we are Japanese and we're Asians, and the conservatives here do support President Trump. I think that it will be very stupid to try and find things that are not common in each other and turn each other into enemies while we could be allies. You know, because there are a bunch of those who want to just find faults in me as a white person or something. Like, I'm Asian, I might look pale, but I'm getting tan and I'm turning yellow. Like, me insisting my opinions or how things are here doesn't mean that I'm bashing you, I'm criticizing you or whatsoever. I'm just stating how things are here. So what we need to focus on is, as I might have said earlier, it's the balance of power. You know, we don't need to be the same because we are different. We just need to fight together against the same or common enemies, and I don't think that's hard. So I'm gonna end this video here. If you want to see more of these videos, please like and share this video, and also subscribe to this channel, Random Yoga 2. And if you could please check out my Patreon page. I kind of came closer to you. Yeah. I don't know how to make a sexy face. I can't handle. Oh my gosh, it's 1:30 right now. So, like, I was wondering why I'm so hyper right now. It's because it's midnight. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Take care until next time, okay? I will talk to you soon. Bye.